Hello there, welcome to Nerd.World Films and Part 4, the final chapter, Friday the 13th. Obviously, this is the last film in the series, as they called it, the final chapter. I can't even do that with a straight face, the joke's bad. We got the final chapter, Friday the 13th, Part 4. This film follows the same formula the previous films had done, mainly not bringing back the same actor to play Jason. In fact, Jason is played by two different actors in this film, both of whom are pretty much uncredited. One of them, I believe, only did one scene. Pretty much they get stuntmen to do it. That's fine. They are Tom Savini and Ted White. This film also stars Corey Feldman as Tommy, basically the main little hero kid, little shit, in this film. And we have Crispin Glover, who you may remember from a little film known as Back to the Future. He's the douchebag that wouldn't come back to the other films because allegedly he demanded a higher salary than what his career at the time would have allowed. Bad career move. Very bad. Those films are great. So, what do we know about Friday the 13th? Part 4, the final chapter. We do know it's one of the first films, but not the last, to stupidly call itself the final chapter and not be the final chapter. So in this movie we have the story where, of course, at the end of the last movie we'll see a lot of archive footage in this. Pamela Voorhees, the various different Jasons, other such things, bringing the audience up to speed. That's fine. Exposition, great. We obviously know that Jason died in part 3 when he took an axe to the mask. He's taken to hospital. They assume he's dead. The doctors, quite rightly, assume he's got an axe in his head. But Jason wakes up, kills a nurse, kills a doctor, miraculously coming back to life. Why? Who knows? Because he's a fucking zombie. He has to be by this point. He gets up, trots his way back, or tries to make his way back to Camp Crystal Lake. That's the only place Jason wants to be. Back at the lake, we've got a group of teenagers, once again, horny teenagers, living, or rather staying, in a house they're renting near to Camp Crystal Lake. We've got a house next door owned by mother and her kids, Corey Feldman. And Jason, this is the way he decides to walk home. Along the way, get a little bit of killing in. So we start losing our horny teenagers one after another, and it eventually becomes the job of Corey Feldman and his sister to take on the wicked undead zombie that is Jason Voorhees and put a stop to his shenanigans once and for all in the final chapter. So aside from all the usual kind of deaths and gore and violence that comes with any Friday the 13th movie, there are things about this film that are of note. This film was made on approximately a $1.8 million budget. It would earn approximately $32 million at the box office. It has gone on to earn much more since then. It is also one of the last films in the series to basically not be part of what is sort of an unofficial trilogy of films, or quadrilogy of films, within the Friday the 13th series. Basically, all the films up to this one, and including this one, followed on from each other directly. There was sometimes a gap of a few years after, but the immediate opening scene carried on basically from the last film. They follow on from each other one after the other. This film was the last film in the series to do that. Also, at the time of release, this film had the most nudity and amongst the most violence and death in the entire series. It has obviously been surpassed by later installments like Jason X, and certainly things like Jason Takes Manhattan and Jason Goes to Hell. But at the time, it was a pretty violent and dark movie. And then, for those of you that are interested, here are a montage of some of the death scenes, but not the nudity. This isn't porn. Hope you enjoyed that. So, what about this film makes it stand out from the other films? Well, it introduces sort of categorically the concept that Jason is effectively a zombie. He has to be. He's pretty much dead. There's no way he's alive anymore. What he is, he's some kind of supernatural entity. It's by now got it down. It's established who and what he is. The hockey mask, the machete, big, hulking, dangerous, kills everyone on sight pretty much. Single-minded, doesn't care about himself or anyone else, just wants people dead. What his motives are, not sure. He just doesn't seem to like anyone being near his lake. Seems to be a kind of a case of you leave him alone, he'll leave you alone. But basically, it's down. If you're a bunch of horny teenagers looking to get drunk, high and laid, Camp Crystal Lake may not be the right place for you. You may want to consider somewhere else, like Lake Placid or something. Just go somewhere else. So, this film has established these these rules basically are established. Who and what Jason is, what he's doing, what his motives are, and the basic modus operandi of these things is down. It otherwise doesn't have anything. It does introduce certain new elements. It tries to mix up the story a little bit by having sort of idiots who the disposable characters are all going to just be killed off one by one in a series of gruesome manners, usually with a machete or decapitation or something. And you've got your characters who you kind of want to live. In this case, you've got kids. The first film to really have kids in it that aren't teenagers. Personally, don't class people who are 18, 19 as kids, but that might be just me. I don't know. They're not children at that age. Dumb, maybe, but not children. And yeah, it's an interesting film in its own right. They were clearly again trying to round it off. They put things like the final chapter into titles of films to try and make you think that it really is going to be the final installment, and it tries to trick you into watching it. They were thinking that the film series might have been going dry, but actually, based on its box office takings and its general popularity, this is actually one of the more beloved entries in the franchise. It's well acted, again, it's pretty well paced, but it doesn't make any pretense about what it is at this point. It's not going to waste time on as much character development and story beats, because by this point they know that people are coming to see the Friday the 13th films to see Jason Voorhees hack people to pieces. They learn their lesson a little on. They get better stories and better characters in later films, but generally speaking, that's where this film sits. It's not a bad installment. It doesn't actually suffer for it particularly. It's a little less inspired than the previous movies, as to be funny, for all of them are, but every film will again introduce something new and something different into this. There's an element of a sort of early Home Alone vibe, effectively, with Corey Feldman's kid, protagonist, basically trying to fend off the dangerous home invader. Only Marv isn't trying to steal the TV, he's trying to pick the TV up and club him over the head with it. Another important fact about this movie that should be remembered, and it is an important fact, is this film was made in 1984. That was a good year. I was born in 1984. Good year. So, without again going into too many spoilers, this film had a lot of deaths, a lot of nudity, a lot of violence, a lot of blood, a lot of Jason. In fact, more Jason probably than the previous movies. And it's got Corey Feldman. Because why not? But is it a bad film? Is it a great movie? It is not a great film. It is not inspired. It basically gives it sort of does the idea that Jason is just alive. He's just going to keep coming. He's an unstoppable killing machine. But unlike, say, the Halloween series that at least tried to, and it failed, didn't do it well, which is why it's kind of had a couple of reboots since, it tried to introduce the idea that Michael Myers was a supernatural entity and explain why. There's no explanation for Jason. Jason just is. He's not. Is he cursed? Is he what? He's just a zombie, effectively. At least with Freddy, you know why? He made a deal with demons to become a demon himself, to collect souls for them, or some shit like that. Anyway, what the hell's Jason doing? He's just a serial killer who doesn't seem to be able to be stopped. Nothing wrong with that. but it is a little left out there. Any token explanations that are given are not good, and it does kind of fail. So I'm going to score this movie. It's going to get the lowest score of the series so far, I'm afraid. It's going to get into 4 out of 6, and that's basically, it's getting that because it's not inspired enough. It lacks something, this film. It's actually an incredibly enjoyable film, though. It's only getting that because when I have to compare it to, and you have to, and I don't care what people say about, rank a sequel in its own right. Fuck that. No. It can be in its own right. You can judge a sequel as an independent film, but it's always going to be compared to the older films. If it's a remake, you compare it to the original. If it's a sequel, you compare it to the previous films. And in this case, you compare it to the previous movies. Those movies had suspense, drama, action, blood, and gore. This film has less intelligence, in my feeling, put into it. That is something that will be corrected in later installments. They get smarter, but this film, it's kind of A to B. At least they waited a couple of years this time for making it rather than instantly, so it feels like it has a better and higher production value. It's actually very well acted. The cast are very good. It's well filmed, it's well shot, mostly shot at night of course, but it doesn't suffer for it. It's a good film. It's very enjoyable, it's highly enjoyable. It only ranks lower on my list in its scoring because of just comparing it to the previous movies. It just isn't there. It's not top tier Jason. It's mid tier. That said, the series does get a lot better. So I hope you're enjoying this series so far. I know I don't go into a lot of detail about the story, but I really do encourage people to watch these films for themselves. I don't want to sit here and explain to you scene by scene what happens in the film. I want to share my love and enjoyment of these things without spoiling it for you if you've not actually seen it. If you are enjoying this series, however, consider liking, sharing and subscribing, and also check out my other channels which are linked in the description below, including Only Nerds, because if that's something that interests you, that doesn't exist. That's never going to exist unless people want it, but no one wants that. It's never going to exist.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.